the complexion, the quality of their hair, or even the diseases they suffer from. It differs from genetic group to genetic group, from one ethno-linguistic group to another ethno-linguistic group. Two tribal groups have a different genetic set of mutations, which may not be seen in other groups. This could be advantageous in some cases, right, where some groups are blessed with a more athletic build and better health indicators. But some of the mutations can even be a huge disadvantage because it could make certain groups prone to certain diseases, especially genetic hereditary diseases. I'm sure you would have heard about sickle cell anemia, how the sickle cell disease is more prevalent amongst few tribal groups in the country. Few specific tribes have a greater inclination, a greater proclivity to suffer from sickle cell anemia, which is essentially inherited because of the genetic mutations they have. So given this profile, it's very important to understand the genetic distribution and the diversity in the country, that too from a policy making perspective, from a healthcare point of view. So that is the purpose behind Genome India project. In fact, at the global level, there is a similar project called the Human Genome Project. But the Global Human Genome Project has largely been Eurocentric, where the samples that have been collected have largely focused on Western countries and other cultures and societies, with very little focus on the diversity of India. So India launched its own genome initiative to collect genome samples, to study the genetic sequence and develop the full genome sequence, so that we can understand the population profile of the country, understand the ethno-linguistic diversity, and develop scientific knowledge about genetic mutations in different population groups, so that we can understand their vulnerability for diseases. This helps in understanding the proclivity of certain groups for certain diseases, so that you can develop better diagnostic tools. You can develop what we call as precision medicine. Targeted medical tools and tests and devices can be developed. Better drugs, better vaccines can be developed. And preventive steps can also be taken to prevent certain hereditary genetic diseases. So from a healthcare perspective and a policy making perspective, this scientific study holds immense significance for a large country like India. So under this project, around 20 scientific institutions, they pooled their resources and efforts together to carry out the genome sequencing of 20,000 individuals in the country. Samples from 20,000 individuals have been collected, and out of that, full genome sequencing has been done for 10,000 samples collected from 10,000 individuals. Institutions such as the Center for Brain Research, which is based out of Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru, led this scientific project along with many other institutions from the country, including the Center for Cellular Microbiology in Hyderabad and many other scientific institutions. So more than 20 institutions have been part of this collaborative project, and they have collected the samples from 83 diverse population groups. Out of these 83 groups, around 30 of them were tribal groups. The remaining 50 have been non-tribal groups. The samples collected includes not just the blood sample to carry out the full genome sequencing, but also phenotype data, which includes the height and weight of the individual, and as well as the hip and waist circumference to understand the build of the body type, and as well as blood pressure. These key phenotype data also was captured along with blood samples from nearly 20,000 individuals. In phase 1, the full genome sequencing of 10,000 individuals has been completed and the final reports have been published. So that is the context in which this article has been brought. So now let's understand from what type of groups the samples were collected, and let's understand the scientific approach towards genome sequencing and what could be the advantages, the benefits of this study. In this particular project, the researchers, as I said, have collected the samples from 83 population groups which are unrelated to each other. In fact, almost every individual sample which has been collected under this study is not related to another sample which has been collected. This ensures the diversity of the sample itself. They have chosen the groups from 100 distinct geographical regions of the country, from northeast India to southern parts of India to the islands, Andaman, Nicobar and Lakshadweep as well. So through very careful selection, 83 population groups were identified, and out of them, as I said, around 30 of them were tribal groups belonging to different races, including the Tibeto-Burman lineage, which you primarily find towards the Himalayan belt and the northeastern region. The Indo-European lineage, essentially found towards northern parts of India. The Dravidian lineage, primarily found towards southern part of India. And the Austro-Asiatic lineage, which you find in Andaman, Nicobar and few other parts of the country. So like this, a distinct mix of samples were collected, not only from such tribal groups, but from non-tribal entities as well. And focus was also placed on distinct ethno-linguistic groups. As I told you, language is often associated with a distinct ethnicity. Now take for example the Bodo community in Assam. They belong to a distinct ethnic lineage under the Tibeto-Burman class, and they speak a distinct language, which is the Bodo language. Same goes for the Mizo community. The Mizo ethnic community speaks a different language, the Mizo language. So quite often language has been a proxy for ethnicity, which essentially is an indicator of genetic distinction as well. So based on such parameters, these samples were collected from around the country, and 10,000 of these samples have been fully sequenced. And now this data is going to be extremely crucial for policy making and for studies in the field of biotechnology. As I said, many groups in the country would be endogamous as a part of their cultural practice, meaning they would marry within the community, within the clan, within the tribe, thus preserving the distinct genetic traits. So this factor also has been accounted for in the study, and now the final result